Hey there berries, welcome to another support guide. We've got lots of support guides here, so make sure you do check them out if you are curious about playing any other champion. But today we're going to be looking at Pyke. Pyke is quite a high mechanical skill champion. It involves a lot of roaming as well, so high mechanical and macro. Definitely not the easiest support champion to play, definitely up there in terms of the mechanical skill requirement, but if you are feeling like you are wanting something a bit more exciting, maybe a bit more exciting than some of the more standard engaged supports, then Pyke might be the champion for you. So what I usually do, if you're not familiar with my guides, is nothing too fancy in terms of graphical stuff, but we will cover pretty much everything that you need to know in terms of learning the champion. So consider this as kind of like a lecture, but hopefully at the end of it you'll have everything that you need in order to play Pyke at a particularly high level, barring your own mechanical skills in terms of being able to play the champion. So on screen you can see the runes. These are the runes that are generally taken every single game on Pyke. There's not too many fancy things going on here. If you are a support main and you're probably not aware of some of the runes, particularly in the domination tree, things like Halo Blades are super rare to pick up as a support. So when you are going in for your first auto attack, the first 3 auto attacks are sped up on Pyke, which helps in terms of the quick damage, because Pyke is basically a very bursty champion. So once you engage, you want the fight to be over with as quickly as possible, and then look for resets. Cheap shot, you might be familiar if you've played maybe some of the AP champions. When you impair an enemy champion, you do a little bit extra damage. The cooldown on cheap shot is relatively low, it's only 4 seconds, so you're going to be proccing this a couple of times in a team fight. Just a little extra damage in terms of trying to find that kill in order to help win those team fights. Zombie Ward, incredibly useful. You will be picking up an item called Umbral Glaive, which I'll go through the item stuff later on. But the main reason why we're picking up Zombie Ward is because we will have Umbral Glaive. That's an item that can essentially almost one-shot control wards and vision wards. So you will want this item and Zombie Ward combined, and it will help you stack up the Zombie Ward's buff quite a lot, because every time you take out a ward, not only will you drop like a temporary ward of your own to help you increase your vision score, but also you'll get adaptive bonus. So every time you take out those wards, you're getting passive stats, which increases your damage. Ultimate Hunter is pretty nice. Some people do go into the movement speed, out of combat movement speed, to be able to roam around the map a lot more, which is a fine option too. Ultimate Hunter allows you just to have your ultimate just off a bit quicker, which you will be using a lot throughout the entire game. So either Ultimate Hunter or the movement speed is perfectly fine. Just go for a couple games of Ultimate Hunter. If you feel like you've got your ultimate up more than you need it anyway, then just go into the movement speed. It will help you roam. Resolve secondaries. So Pyke's one of Pyke's main weaknesses is that if he gets caught out, mainly by crowd control, he can die pretty quickly. So bone plating helps prevent too much damage coming through early on. So this might get chipped off via poke damage in lane. So if you don't know bone plating, it blocks, well, it mitigates the next 3 attacks done to you, but the bone plating buff only lasts for 1.5 seconds. So if you get hit, say, for like an Ash volley when you're in lane, it can proc the bone plating, and then you might not get hit by anything else for a little while. So this is more like when you're going deep in an engage, and then you'll have the bone plating block, pretty much guaranteed blocking 3 spells or attacks, and it does mitigate a decent chunk of damage. We're talking about roughly about 120-ish health on average throughout a game. Bone plating will proc every time you go in for a full commit. Unflinching, because we mentioned earlier how Pyke is extremely weak to crowd control. If you full engage in and then get like stunned, you are actually really squishy. So if that does happen, then the chances of you dying are pretty high. Tenacity helps you get out of that crowd control, and unflinching will help with that. So this is just another nice rune in order to help increase your survivability, essentially, rather than getting absolutely wrecked. Double adaptive force, you definitely want the adaptive force because you want to have more damage, particularly on your ultimate, which we'll talk about later, which will help with resets. And then generic defense. So defense on the 6 armor is normal. If you're up against like a double magic damage bot lane, if you're aware of that, like say if if you're going up against like a Ziggs AP carry and like a Nami, most of the damage you're going to be taking is magic damage, so you might want to opt into the magic resist. I will say though, if you're unaware, armor does help block minion damage and it does help block turret damage. So even if you do accidentally have armor against 2 magic damage dealers, it's not the end of the world. But you will, if you're paying attention, you will switch between if needed. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the practice tool. We're going to set some things up, and then we're going to start talking about Pyke's abilities, and then we're going to talk about the itemization for that afterwards, and then we'll go into some little tips at the end, and I'm sure we'll talk about some tips in between on the ability section as well. So just go into the practice tool. If I can find it, there we go. Pyke. We use the same runes as we used before, and you always want Ignite and Flash on Pyke. There's a lot of cool tricks that you can do with Flash on Pyke, so it's mandatory. And Ignite, once again, just helps get those kills in as quickly as possible. You are basically an assassin. So we're going to be talking about Pyke's abilities. Unfortunately, there's no real easy way of showing his passive in the practice tool. But basically, when Pyke takes damage from enemy champions, this is why I can't show it because we don't have any enemy champions, unfortunately. But if we were to take damage from enemy champions here, we will store grey health. Now, if there's more than one enemy champion, then this amount of grey health increases. And then when you go stealth with one of your abilities, if you go into a brush where they don't have vision, or if you go out of line of sight of the enemy, you will regenerate the grey health on your bar. The more attack damage you have, the more health you can basically store on your health bar. So as you go in later into the game, you'll be able to regenerate more health by getting in and out of combat, essentially. Also, Pyke has another passive, so he can't actually get more health on his, so you can't buy like health items. You can't buy, like if I buy a giant's belt, it will get converted from 14 health. Every 14 health on that item will get converted into 1 attack damage. So if I see here on the bottom left hand corner, I've got 104 attack damage. I buy a giant's belt, and also pay attention to my HP, 2305. If I buy a giant's belt, my AD goes up, but my health stays the same. So we got about 25 attack damage or something from that. My math's not great here. Yeah, 25 attack damage from a giant's belt. Generally, the conversion isn't amazing, so you don't generally want to buy health items anyway because of that. And also, Pyke scales really nicely with lethality. So you're going to be wanting to buy pretty much as many lethality items as you can. And we'll go through that now. So that's the 2 passive kind of covered there. So Pyke's first ability is a hook. He fires it out in a line. It will get blocked by minions. And it does a reasonable amount of damage. And what it does, I'll show it on this target dummy here. You pull after you have to hold it down in order to get the hook animation out. And then when you let go, you bring the target to yourself. Now that's like a set distance. Okay, so it's not like a blitzcrank hook where the unit will always come to you like that. So it's a set distance. So if we do max range hook here, you can see how they only came halfway. Now if you actually hook them while they're right next to you, they'll be flung behind you. So remember, it's always a set distance. You've also got another option with this ability too. You can do a little tap. Now it does the same amount of damage, but it's just instant. So if you haven't got time to wind up your hook, maybe they're right in front of you and they're nearly dead, you can just go stab and then just whack out your autos like that. And you kind of saw there with the attack speed, with Halo Blades kicking in there. That's why I was auto-attacking so fast then. So tap is a stab, hold down is a set distance pull. Pyke's second ability is a camouflage ability, which is kind of like stealth. So if we go into camouflage here, you can see that this enemy can't see us yet. It's got a little yellow crescent eye. But if we get closer, then they can see us here. So the enemy would be able to see us here at this point. And obviously you'll be able to be seen by towers and control wards. So when in this, you will gain increased movement speed, which also scales with lethality, as mentioned earlier. So the more lethality you have, the faster you go. And also, because you can't be seen here, if you've got any of that grey health on your health bar, you will regenerate that while you are hidden. Pyke's third ability is a stun and dash combination. So if we were to dash over to our left, so we get that dash, and then there's an animation that kind of follows us to our current location. Now there's some cool things that you can do here with Flash and any other like dash type abilities. So for example, quite common, level 2, you will want to engage by doing a dash and then flashing at the last millisecond if possible, in order to catch the enemy off guard if you aren't able to overlap. So say for example we're going for this target dummy at the back, and we weren't going to quite reach with the dash distance, but we can then facilitate using our flash to push that stun over a longer distance. Now you don't have to do this in a straight line, so it will always go to where you are at the end of the animation, essentially. So we can flash in a completely different direction to catch them off guard like this. This can help you stun multiple people. So what I'm going to do, even though we're not going to go into a straight diagonal line here, just imagine there was some terrain blocking in between the bottom target dummy and the upper target dummy, but we can actually get both units stunned by just facilitating our flash. Very, very important that you learn how to use that ability. And finally, we have Pyke's ultimate. So you've got a giant X here. Once you get targets down to lower amounts of HP, usually the threshold is around about roughly here. Once they hit around about this HP, there will be an indicator to say when they're ready. The health bar will look substantially different when they're ready to be executed. You then use your ultimate and it will kill them. Now this ability goes through shields. So as long as their health meets the execute requirement, they will die. They can have 1 HP but a billion shield and they will die still. Okay? So it only cares about how much health is on the target. Now this damage on this ultimate is quite unique because it actually increases per level that you get, as in champion level. So if you go from level 6 to level 7, this ultimate will increase in damage. It also scales off attack damage and lethality. Okay. And one other thing I forgot to mention as well is that the passive also does scale on lethality as well. So Pyke's passive, Pyke's W, Pyke's E stun also increases based on lethality, and Pyke's ultimate's damage also increases based on lethality. So the only thing that actually doesn't properly scale from lethality is his Q, but of course if you've got more lethality, this should be doing more damage anyway. So that's why lethality on this champion is super, super important, and why you won't be building health items to get the weird health to AD conversion on his passive. Now, when you do execute an enemy, they have to be at that location when you land. So the enemy can flash it, they can stasis it, and that's how they can avoid being hit by this. But if you do manage to execute the enemy, it will reset and you will be allowed to cast it again. So in theory, you can kill 5 people and get a pentakill by chaining your ulti. It's quite difficult to do, to get the chain resets over and over and over like that, but it's entirely possible to do. and has been done many times on Pyke before. Now, you know how before we talked about the dash on the E? You can actually use that in combination with your ultimate. So there are many cases where you might not want, well, unable, should I say, to execute the enemy, and you need to kind of use your ultimate as a gap closer. So what you can do is you can dash, and then ult, and then it allows you to get behind the target, and then you can stun the target dummy at the same time. So it's basically like using flash. Or you can go like extreme distances if you need to, in combination with flash. So we can do E flash ultimate, and we manage to stun the target. The problem with this though is not only is it incredibly difficult to do in a game of solo queue, but you also need to kind of land. You will always land at the center of the X. So in order to try and push yourself behind them, you're gonna need to kind of move off to the left or to the right still in order to get past the unit. So if I ult here, you can see how I landed directly center of the X. So if I was dashing and then messed up my ulti, you can see I'm now landing left of the target dummy when I was dashing from the left. So I'm not actually stunning this target that I'm at. So you need to make sure that you get your ulti placement so that you're going essentially through the target. So that leaves even more the amount of pixels that you need to be on target here are massively reduced when you're trying to do this. You can facilitate by using your kind of like the other marks of the X, but that becomes extremely difficult and even more risky. So you could go like this. So you can see how I landed quite far behind the target, but that's because the bottom left hand kind of line hit the target dummy and allowed me to be centralized above it, essentially. So it's a very awkward skill shot to land if you are trying to use these wings of this cross in order to make that play happen, but it's possible. And I'm sure there's players out there that use that frequently after being, you know, it takes some time getting used to. It's not a standard skill shot, like hieroglyphic or whatever you want to call it, telegraph, but it is entirely possible. Next, we'll talk about the items. So when you're starting out in the game, you're going to be wanting these steel shoulder guards. Basically, it's the same as a relic shield, but with AD stats. So you're going to want to last hit cannon minions when you can, with a charge, and that will build up, and then you'll get wards through them, exactly the same as relic shield. Now, the very first item in the game I highly recommend you buy is Umbral Glaive. Umbral Glaive is probably the most disgusting support item in the entire game if your champion is able to pick it up. The only one really that can pick this up, well, you got Pyke and then you got Senna. Those two champions pick this item up semi-frequently. Pyke definitely picks it up pretty much every single game, first item. So Umbral Glaive, if you're unaware, gives lethality, gives a decent amount of attack damage. It's extremely cheap at 2,300, one of the cheapest items in the game. And it's mainly picked up for this. So Blackout, when spotted by an enemy ward, you reveal traps and disable wards around you for 8 seconds, only has a 40-second cooldown, and your attacks instantly, this is regardless of if you've been spotted, by the way. So your attacks will, so this should be a separate paragraph really. Your attacks instantly kill revealed traps and do triple damage to wards. So you can 1/2 hit wards. So the control wards you will need to hit twice because they have 4 health. But any standard wards, you know, from stealth wards, from trinkets, or from other support items, then you can just one-shot those. As long as you see them as they've been put down, you can hit them and clear them out. If you have oracles, which you will have, you'll be clearing those out, so you'll be able to one-shot wards as well. Super annoying. And then, as mentioned in the rune section before, that works in combination with zombie ward. So super cheap, super amazing first item, and it gets you started on your lethality. Extremely annoying and tilting for the enemy support, and it should allow you to have very strong map control throughout the entire game, as you will be looking to roam a lot from bot to mid and with your jungler. Second item in the game, the most standard one, and the one that I suggest that you take every game, is Duskar second. So Duskar has a huge amount of lethality on. Mythic passive there is grants all other legendary items 5 haste and 5 movement speed. So you're going to be super fast. Haste basically means that your cooldown on your abilities are going to go down lower. We'll talk about Night Stalker effect in a second. I just want to add that when your Steel Shoulder Guards do fully complete, that will count as a legendary item. So once you get 1000 gold on the Steel Shoulder Guards, that counts as a legendary item. Umbral Glaive also counts as a legendary item. So by the time you've already picked up Dustblade, you will already have plus 10 movement speed and plus 10 ability haste already for free off the Dustblade. Night Stalker is a really cool effect. So in the rune section, I mentioned how squishy you are once you go in. You are vulnerable to crowd control and things. If you're going in and you get a reset, so if you land your ulti or just get a random kill or takedown, so kill or assist, you will be invisible for 1.5 seconds. They cannot see you. Control wards will not see you. It doesn't matter if you're near them or not. You will go invisible. This gives you 2 options. This allows you to get out of the fight as quickly as possible, or this allows you to help set up to continue the killing spree that's going on. Also, if that wasn't strong enough, if you melee attack a champion, you're going to be doing bonus damage to them, and if so, because we're melee, we're going to be slowing the target by 99% for 0.25 seconds. So like a tiny little slow to help maybe teammates catch up onto the enemy. Very, very, very strong mythic. The other option you have potentially is Prowler's Claw, but I'm not going to be talking about that in this video, and nor do I recommend it at the moment, but it will help you get behind the target. But you could have many tools to get behind the target with Flash, with your own E, with Ultimate. There's no reason, in my opinion, to be picking up a Prowler's Claw. In terms of boots, Mobi boots will help you roam a lot. That's generally my favorite. I don't really recommend anything else. Say if you picked Pyke first and you were up against a ridiculous amount of crowd control, maybe you're up against stuff like Lissandra, and you know, I don't know, just lots and lots of stuns, essentially. Lots of stuns. Then maybe you could go into something like a Merc Treads to get the extra tenacity. But I would urge you not to. You want to try and make it so that you make the first 15 minutes of the enemy's team's life a living hell. So Mobi Boots will help you get around the map even more. Makes you super fast. Once you get to this kind of point in the game, these are, you know, 4... let's start this health potions. These are like kind of the 4 standard items that you're going to have pretty much every single game. You kind of have a choice of about 3 to 4 items here. Axiom Arc is extremely greedy. I do not recommend that you pick up this item, so don't be baited by it. Your 2 options really are the Yamumu's Ghostblade, and you've got Edge of Night. My favorite is Ghostblade. Once again, it allows you to move around the map a lot faster, helps with roaming, helps with getting into situations quite nicely. The active, when you pop that, gives you more movement speed too. So I think that's pretty nice. Edge of Night can be useful if the enemy is catching you out maybe with some random like long range ability, or if they have like a 1-button press, that emergency button press that they can use on you, like the Lissandra ulti, maybe like a Malzahar ult. They will have to get another cast, ability cast on you in order to, you know, pop that off. So that can be quite useful, but it's quite situational, as if you're up against like a poke team, or if they've just got a couple units that can poke and pop off the Edge of Night, then this item is essentially, in terms of stat, gold value is pretty bad. You're basically buying this for the spell shield. So make sure you are taking that for the right reasons, because if you compare the base stats of Youmuu's and Edge of Night, Youmuu's has plus 5 AD, plus 8 lethality, and it has 15 ability haste, whereas Edge of Night has minus 5 AD, minus 8 lethality, and it has health, and it's got that weird, you know, clunky ratio in terms of how much AD you're going to get from that, and it ends up being slightly more attack damage on Edge of Night over Youmuu's, but then you're not getting the haste as well. So generally Youmuu's and the movement's out of combat movement speed. So Youmuu's is far superior to Edge of Night under normal situations. So always lean towards Youmuu's more. In terms of like final item here, once again you can go into like Edge of Night, as I was mentioning earlier. These other two items are trash. You don't want Schrodinger's Grudge, you don't need armor penetration. You'll always be seeking down squishy targets, and you're not going to be benefiting that much from actual physical damage because you are basically looking at executes like this late into the game. You're trying to get as many ult executes off as possible. And the way you can do that is either by more damage or more lethality / like huge amounts of attack damage, or by staying alive more. So you've got two options here. If you're not going to go Edge of Night, you've got Guardian Angel, which is quite a standard one. Earlier on in the itemization, you've got the stopwatch, will help you be invulnerable for a couple of seconds. Not too much attack damage and raw stats coming from this, but if you do get taken down, you will hopefully be able to get away. I will note that if you have already ulted in a fight, and even if you execute them, if you get your Guardian Angel gets popped, for whatever reason, you can't use your ulti again. It gets put on cooldown. So if you are halfway through, you know, if you've used your ult, it's flashing again for the reset. If you die with GA up still, you won't be able to recast your ulti. I don't know why. And that's something I probably should have mentioned in the tooltip in the ability section. Sorry, if you execute someone with your ultimate, you have 20 seconds in order to use that ability. So the reset does have a timer on it. There will be a little indicator on your next to your health bar to say that you've got your ulti available, and it also allows the enemies to know that you can actually ult reset again. The other item is if you're up against like a lot of magic damage, you've got this item called More. And you won't be really making much use of the lifesteal portion. There's an Omnivamp portion. Once you go below a certain amount of health, 30% health, you'll get an extra 10% Omnivamp. That's not really what we're looking for it for, but we get a decent chunk magic damage shield, which can be super effective at those magic damage dealers, and it gives you a huge chunk of magic resist as well. So 50 magic resist against some of those magic damage users can prove to be pretty useful. So I would recommend, personally, I would usually go like GA last item. If you don't know, then just go GA. If you also happen to be up against like 2-3 really strong AP casters, then More can potentially keep you alive. And don't forget, like, GA has a 5-minute cooldown once that does get popped, so you won't be able to revive for another 5 minutes. And if you've got a lot of gold, it might be worth like picking up the GA first and then selling it, and then picking up another different item like a More. And then after 5 minutes is up, you can then sell the More again and go GA. Just kind of depends how much gold you have, because generally with Pyke's ultimate, you will be racking up a little bit more gold than usual, than, you know, most support, since you will be getting King Blows generally, and also you'll be getting the alt gold sharing part of the execute portion of the ultimate, which we didn't touch on either, which is my bad. But when an enemy champion dies aside the X and you execute them, you got the recast, and if you do execute that champion, the last assisting ally who will also get gold. If he did not, he will still get the kill gold as if he did. One thing to note with that, if you're playing with a Draven, even if you ult and you get the kill with your ulti, if Draven was the last person to hit that target, it will actually give him his passive, which is huge for him. So don't worry about ulting near a Draven. But that's basically the items and the ability sections covered. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to cover. Generally, with Pyke, level 2 is kind of where you want to be. That's where you're going to be the strongest, for sure, very, very early on. For 2 reasons. It's because you've got your hook. You can also like walk towards the enemy with your hook as well. You don't have to like release it straight away. You don't have to stand still. Like, if they're starting to dodge left and right, you can just close that gap, close it, close it, close it, close it, and then release it once you're in melee range of them. Also, you could do, at level 2, you could just, instead of doing a hook play like that, so if you hook someone and then you dash over and stun them and try and get a reaction that way. Another way is level 2 engage if you've got like a really strong early AD carry like a Draven, for example. If you like dash up to them and then flash at the last second, which we kind of talked about before, that helps catch up people. And then if they flash after that, then you can hunt them down with your hook and finishing them off that way. If you do end up getting chip damaged quite a lot in the lane, don't forget you can utilize these brushes, heal up with the grey health bar above your head. And you will also want to make use of going up and down this river and trying to gank mid whenever you can, when possible too. You've got a lot of mobility tools, you've got the movement speed coming from your W. I will say though, when you are using your W, the enemy will hear kind of like Pyke music when you're nearby, so it can kind of give away your location. So if we W over here, get nearer, you can see how these symbols now are around the target. That no symbols, and now there's symbols near the dummies. So this is kind of the range. If you're W selfing from here, they can hear you. They can hear you and they know that you're around. They can't see where you are, but they can hear you. So that will give you they'll give the enemy an indicator like, okay, Pyke's actually here, I need to back off. So be careful about going into stealth, and if you're wanting to gank, surprise gank someone, be very, very careful about how you use your W in order to engage and surprise an enemy, because they'll know you're there if they're paying attention and they're not listening to music. Just trying to think if there's anything else here to add. I mean, those are the raw mechanics. The good Pykes versus the great Pykes are basically how you use this dash. How you get the stuns off, the angles that you find, the escapes that you find. And yeah, talking about escapes actually, one thing I would like to mention actually is how you can help your AD carry get out of really, really bad situations. So imagine this is your poor little AD carry. He's been flaming you all game, but you feel bad for him still. These two are chasing down your AD carry, and you want to get away from the situation. You don't actually want to fight it. You want to walk into the situation and then dash kind of towards where your AD carry is, and it will make it so they can't dash or follow up on the situation here as much. So you can close off temporarily the route from the enemy to your AD carry. So I don't see many Pykes use this actually that often, but it helps disengage a little bit. Puts a temporary little blockade in front. It's better than nothing, and it has helped my AD carries get out of a couple of situations like that. So just a little something there that might help you in your games. In terms of that, I don't think there's really anything else to add. I think I covered everything that I wanted to. That's your runes, that's your items, that's your abilities, some ability hints dotted around here and there. But he's not the easiest champion to play, and I would highly suggest, he's one of the few champions that I would say like you should probably go into a practice tour and just goof around on his abilities a little bit, have fun, you know, pressing E and then flashing, making sure that you're getting used to that. It's not, just take your time with it and practice it. Practice landing your ulti, practice doing E and then ult. Those are some of the more standard combos that you should be learning. I don't see too many Pykes utilizing the E ulti one. You don't, as I mentioned before, you don't have to use your ulti to execute a target. You can use that as a secondary dash. But I hope this guide helps you out. I hope that you enjoy playing Pyke as much as I have. He's particularly good against those squishy enchanters that get played. If you do end up playing against like a Leona, for example, someone that will dash on top of you, when you dash away, they can sometimes follow you, which is great, because what you can do is you can do so imagine the Leona is engaging on me and catching me out here, but if I manage to dash just in time, you actually kind of drag her around the tower. And not only that, because your like dash clone is coming towards yourself, she'll actually get stunned on the turret. I've had a few kills against like a Leona specifically against that, but I'm sure you can like figure out other little bits and bobs as you're playing him in order to trick enemy engagers into engaging you in a bad spot, and then they get pulled under turret that way. Because, you know, once they're stunned under turret, and then you can quickly hook them under it too, and then it's just a complete nightmare, and they're tanking turret shots for days, and they should be dead after that. But yeah, I hope this Pyke guide helps you out. All the best. And if you are interested in any more support guides that I've made in a very similar fashion to this, then we've got all sorts of champions like Nami and Soraka and, you know, God knows what else. There's a playlist I'll put underneath the stream, the video, that you can use, and you can learn how to play some other supports. All the best and good luck.